and we have a very busy man, Mr. DeVon Franklin. What's up, man? How are you?
What's up, man? I'm good. But it takes busy to know busy.
Yeah. I'm not your busy yet, but I'm well. I'm doing good.
Right on. Good to see you.
So I like to ask everyone this question when they come on the show. Yeah. It's just if you can do something, whatever it is that you did within the last few days, weeks, months, whatever it is, if you can relive that thing again, what would it be and why?
If I could relive that thing again, what would it be? Anything. Right. This past weekend, we had our family over to our house, and so my wife did all the cooking and preparing, and it was amazing. And we celebrated family birthdays and just had a really good time. The reason why I want to do it over is because I've been on this promotional tour, and so I was so tired that I enjoyed it, but I didn't really enjoy it the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I would love to redo that dinner and just enjoy it and take in everything that she prepared, take in the conversations, and just really be more present, because I was coming off a trip and about to go on another trip, and so it just kind of robbed me of really the moment that I wanted to have.
Yeah. Does that same feeling? Do you feel that same way about when you have to do these promotional tours? Like, are you in the moment, or is it just
that's actually easier, because it's like, okay, cool, I'm locked in, let's go.
Okay.
It's when I'm in the midst of a promotional tour that I have to do other things. It makes it harder on those things, but not on this, because it's like, man, I'm so passionate and so excited about the movie that listen, we've been on the road for weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be on the road for a couple more weeks. So I love that part of it. And in every interview is like, okay, hey, what are we going to talk about now?
Yeah.
How are we going to talk about? What's the angle? What are we going to do? So no, it actually works. But when I got to do other stuff like family stuff, I tell the family, like, yo, Ruth and Boaz comes out the 26th. After that, I'll be back. But until then, you may not hear from me, and don't take it personally, And if you do hear from me, it may be just a couple words, because I'm locked in.
What are you looking forward to after all of this is done? All the promotional stuff, all of that. What are you looking forward to the most?
Starting the next movie. I'm in pre-production on the next film, and we start production in November. So I'm looking forward to getting back on set. Like that's what I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, you are a busy man. Soul on Fire is dropping October 10th.
Yep.
And then you got Ruth and Boaz with the 26th.
Yes, September 26th.
September 26th. For somebody who is, you were behind the, I don't want to say behind the scenes, because you were active also, right?
Yeah.
But you've had 20 plus years behind the scenes. So, how do these two projects reflect different side of you as a storyteller?
Yeah, with Soul on Fire, I get a chance to act, and with Ruth and Boaz, I get a chance to produce, and it's really cool to have the opportunity to do both. My career has been primarily, to your point, behind the scenes and producing and, writing books. But acting was not something I ever really thought too much about. When I was in high school, I would be in plays and I love theater, but I never really thought about pursuing that as a career. So a few years ago, when some friends of mine were making a film called Jesus Revolution, they called me and said, hey, we have a part for you. And at first I was going to say, well, I'm not an actor, but I caught myself, because I'm like, wait a minute, let me not speak against what God may be speaking for me. So I said, okay, well, let me read the script. I read the script, and I said, all right, well, if you guys want me to do it, then okay, I'll go do it. And I, worked with the acting coach and learned the lines and did the best I could. And they were like, oh, this is really good. And then I just started getting offered parts. So with Soul on Fire, they offered me the part to play the nurse that helps rehabilitate this young boy when he's 9 years old. He gets burned 100% of his body. And if that nurse had not helped him rehab and learn how to walk again, he would have never gone on to become the great motivational speaker that he is today.
Yeah.
And so that Soul on Fire movie is an inspirational film. And when they came to me to play the nurse, I had never done it before, but I was like, all right, let's try. And so I love the opportunity to be able to try that. And then, to really operate even more in my expertise as it relates to producing and storytelling, and to have the opportunity to tell stories on both sides of the camera, man, it's a blessing.
Yeah. Now, I want to walk back a little bit, because for Soul on Fire, I learned that you said in your word, for John to have that experience as a kid, how do you go on and have a life? And I wanted to ask you, when you explored that question through the film, what answer did you come for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about John, when he gets burned, and to prepare for that part, I did a lot of research with nurses and burn units and read a lot of books about patients that are burned to the degree that he was. And what you find out is that, our skin, the layer underneath it, when it gets burned, I mean, it's raw. It's like you're in pain 24/7. Like you can barely move. Anytime you move, you're in pain. And so what was very interesting, learning that the nurse, would get him up to walk him every day. So he had to make an assessment. Either he's going to endure the pain now of walking, or he'll endure the pain later of never being able to walk. And so that idea of like, it's going to be painful. It's just a matter of, is this pain going to work for you, or are you going to let it work against you?
Yeah.
And so ultimately that was the journey, and that pain that he experienced as a kid gave him the foundation to then go on and be the man that he is today and be the motivational speaker. And so, when you look at that journey in the movie and in his life, the discovery is like, okay, things are going to happen to us, things that we don't pray about, things that we don't even ask for. The question is not what happens. The question is, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
And so the answer was found in John O'Leary saying, here's what I'm going to do with what's happened to me. I am going to use it as a platform to help others in the scars that they may have through whatever they've gone through.
How's your relationship with John, like off the
It's good,
screen?
man. John O'Leary is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. He is just, I mean, when I tell you, I mean, like before I even signed on to do the movie, he sent me a video, personalized, said, DeVon, I want you to be in this film, and this is why, and I think you'd be great, and you represent what this nurse in my life represented. I mean, and then I met him on set, and he's amazing. We went out to dinner. He's come over to my house. I mean, he is just one of the nicest, just kindest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Something that, just to sidetrack a little bit, I do wanted to talk to you about Hollywood, but, stemming off of the, I guess, relationships and, being in Hollywood for, like I said earlier, about 20 plus years. People often say, don't go to Hollywood, it'll take your faith. But, you've clearly disproved that. So why do you think that perception about Hollywood exists in the first place?
Well, I mean, I think just the industry, right? I mean, Hollywood, it's glitz, it's glamour, it's red carpets, it's fashion, it's excess on some level. And so I think that, over the years, especially when you're looking at it through a lens of religion, that Hollywood can look through that lens as a place that would be against faith, as a place where you have to be careful. And so I understood growing up as a kid when, people in my church community or family, when I told them I had aspirations to go to Hollywood, and they were like, no, you can't do it. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. It's the devil's playground. You're going to lose your faith. I understood that looking through their lens, that's how it looked. But to me, looking through my lens, it looked like the land of opportunity. Yeah. It looked like the land that I was supposed to be in. It looked like a place where, dreams come true. And was one of the reasons why I wanted to be in entertainment and be in Hollywood, because the magic of making movies, it's amazing. It's like you take words on a page and you turn it into something. That's magical. And the experience and being transported to a world with characters that you relate to, but you don't even know. And I mean, it's just the whole process of making movies and television shows, to me, is just it just takes your imagination to another level. And that's how I saw it. And I said, well, I got to go pursue it, and I got to see if this is meant to be. And now the thing for me was to do it in the way that aligned with me, which is like, okay, I'm not trying to do it and compromise who I am. I'm going to do it and still retain who I am. And if I feel like the industry is ever requiring a compromise from me to move forward, then I won't be in it. It's just not worth it for me. And to date, that hasn't really been the case. The more authentic I've been, the more success I've had.
Yeah. You said a word that magical, and something that is also magical is your relationship with Tyler Perry. And I know y'all have this partnership with Netflix.
Yes.
Tyler is often somebody that, is portrayed differently in media. People celebrate him, people criticize him. But to me, he's like, his impact is obviously undeniable. So in your opinion, what do you think Tyler Perry is called to do for Black people and Black culture?
Wow. Well, I can just talk about what he's doing. When you look at the number of actors and crew and director, when you look at all of the people over the almost, I think, 30 years he's been in the business, if not longer. When you look at all the people that have been employed and that have gotten experience and that he has given opportunity to, it's it's in the tens of thousands. And when he called me a few years ago, he was like, hey, I hear you're making a deal with Netflix. Let's do it together. Let's partner up. And he gave me access to his entire studio in Atlanta, to his phenomenal production executives. And through the whole process has been like, hey, man, this is your movie. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to push you. And I've been in the business a long time. Never have I ever heard of someone of his stature seeing someone else who they know they're already building their business and they've got a lot of potential. And that person says, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some rocket fuel to your jet. I've never seen it except with him. So what do I think his purpose is? I think his purpose is to bring hope, to bring, great entertainment, to connect with people. And he is truly a man of God. And as men of faith, I know that is something that is important to him. And I see it, like making this movie together that we just made, Ruth and Boaz, like, the level of just like, support. I believe in what you're doing. I believe in this movie. I believe that people need hope and they need help and they need faith. It's overwhelming, the level of just support and how he's had my back. So he's been a brother, he's been a friend. And I think that's part of what he's designed to do. He's not just an entertainer. It's like he is someone who is generous and he cares about people and he thinks about people. And that for someone of his stature is rare.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare. So, I'm grateful to say that I know him, and I'm grateful to say that our partnership is just starting, and Ruth and Boaz is the first film.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Great film. I watched it.
You did?
Yeah, they sent me a screener. They sent me a screener.
So thank you for watching it.
For sure. I got some questions if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Let's chop it up.
First off, I want to start here because during the movie, Bree said something that I thought was pretty dope. She said she was speaking to Ruth and she said, all this praying, what God gonna do for us? We need to do our part. To me, that felt like faith, without works. And what I wanted to ask was, what does it look like to balance prayer with action?
It's like this. So, a few years ago, I went to Costa Rica and did an activity. One of the activities was whitewater rafting. And so me and my buddy went, and the guide was in the raft. And so the guide would be at the top of the raft, and I'm on one side of the boat, and he's on the other. My buddy's on the other side of the boat, and the guide would tell us when to row and when to stop. And so there were times he'd tell us to row, and in our mind we would think we were supposed to stop, and then he would tell us to stop, and we're thinking like we're about to hit this rock, but he knew the waves better than we did. So when you talk about prayer and work, it's like that. It's a process. You got to pray, and then you got to work, and then you got to stop. And then you got to pray, and then you got to work, and then you got to stop. You got to pray, you got to work, and then you got to stop. And what's the stopping? The stopping isn't not moving forward. The stopping is to assess. Am I in alignment? How do I feel? Am I getting confirmation on what I'm pursuing? Am I operating in faith, not in fear? It is a continuous dance. The process is alive. That's how it works. And so when Bree is saying that to Ruth, Bree is taking her understanding of what she believes faith to be, saying, hey, well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? What's God going to do for us? We got to do this. And what she's saying isn't wrong. She's speaking from her point of view. But what Ruth is saying is like, yeah, God's doing a lot. And let me tell you what God is doing. God is calling me to leave this group. And then her works behind that faith is to leave the group. And so you have two different people who have two different desires and two different viewpoints of faith. And as a result, they have two different things that they both need to do. And both can still work for the journey that they're on. But when you talk about prayer and work, it is a consistent process. I pray, here's what I'm believing God to do, here's what I'm wanting God to do, and I work in that way. Another thing about faith and prayer is that it's not just a belief system. It's actually how we move and how we act. Because if you are believing that you are going to be, the top host in New York, the way you walk in iHeartMedia is going to be very different than if you don't believe that. So belief isn't just, this is what I'm hoping, it's how I'm living even before it manifests. So it's like, I'm gonna walk in that confidence. It's not arrogance. I'm gonna walk in the confidence that I know who I am and I know what I can do. So I'm gonna pray that one day it will happen. And until then, I will continue to work my way towards that goal and operate in the identity today.
Yeah.
Not waiting for the higher ups to give me the promotion. I'm gonna operate. When I was an intern, I started interning for Will Smith when I was 18 years old. I didn't intern like I was an intern. I interned like I was CEO in training. That's how I approached it, because that was the identity. I'm like, this is just a stepping stone. So my point is that prayer and work together, but it's an alive process. And you got to constantly, consistently evaluate where you are and the progress you're making to utilize both effectively.
Yeah. But there are also moments in life when people do question God, not necessarily question, but have doubts.
Absolutely.
And some of that was displayed in the film as well. A moment that I want to talk about is, Miss Naomi, played by the great Felicia Rashad.
Yes.
When she took down the cross and she said, "I am done with you," it made me wonder, have you ever had a moment where you felt done with God?
That's a good question. Yes, actually. So, at the beginning of my career, so I was an intern at the company that managed Will Smith for my freshman and sophomore year in college. And then my junior and senior year, I was the first intern at his production company. At the time, it was called Overbrook. And then when I graduated, I became an assistant for his producing partner. And because I had been with the company at that time, or been with Will, and his team for about 4 years, when I took the job, I was promised that I would be promoted to become a junior executive in film within a year. So I said, great, I'm gonna take this assistant job, no problem. In a year's time, I'll get promoted. And a year came and went, and no promotion came. And so I was like, let me just give it some more time. I just let a few more months pass, and then nothing happened. And then one day they fired everybody in the film department, and they brought in one guy to do the job of 3. And I still was wondering, well, y'all promised me that this was going to happen, and it's not happening. Now, for me at that time, I could only see like God through the lens of my career. And when it didn't look like my career was happening the way I wanted, I started to lose faith and started to get upset and say, wait a minute, I've sacrificed. Like during college, I didn't go out, I didn't party. I wasn't out there hanging out. I was focused. I was doing my internship. I was working. I was studying. I was focused. I'm ready for this. And what was promised is not happening. And so in the absence of not knowing how to deal with that, I started to lose faith. And so for months, I would come in the office. I had a cubicle. I wouldn't be in the best attitude. I try to be, cool to people, but on the inside, I was in turmoil, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. If this promotion doesn't happen, then what's going to happen to my career? I put everything in this Hollywood. I put all my eggs in a Hollywood basket. Like, if this basket breaks, then what am I going to do? So for months, I would come in the office, just not my best self. And then one day, talking about that cross moment, I go to my cubicle, I turn on my computer, and I say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So what do? I go to the bathroom. I go into the stall. I shut the stall door. And me and God, we have it out. I said, God, I have been faithful. I said, you know what? You said anything I asked for in the name of Jesus, you would do. So I'm going to stand on this word right now. You better move on this job today. Today, if your word is true. If you are who you say you are, then I need you to move on this job today. Left the bathroom. Done. Fast forward later on that night. My boss, it's only he and I in the office. Only time this ever happened. He calls me in his office and says, DeVon, Will and I, we love you. We know you're going to have a big career, but we just can't afford to, we can't promote you. And we know you've kind of outgrown this position. You pretty much hit a wall here. So we want to help you find a new job. Now, in that moment, I'm thinking like, whoa, God did something. But then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. If they want me to help me find a new job, that means my job is not going to be mine much longer. So I was like, okay. So I said, great. Okay, cool. I said, they were like, we'll help you find a job. So, I went on a job search, went on interview after interview, no job. Went to Will. I said, hey, man, can you hook me up with your agents? Because if your agents get behind me, I'll be able to get a job. I went to the agents. The agents made calls on my behalf. I went out on meetings, no job. So around this time, Bishop T.D. Jakes was preaching in L.A. And at the time, I didn't know him. And I went to his service. And I was sitting in the balcony watching him preach. And he preached a sermon called Turn the Page. At the end of Deuteronomy, Moses has died. And when you turn the page to Joshua, God says your mourning time is up. You got to turn the page and you basically have to go into the promised land. And that message spoke to me. And I was like, I got to turn the page on this job. So that was a Friday night, Good Friday. I go in on Monday. What do? I quit. I put in my 2-week notice. And they were like, what are you doing? Like, we said we would help you find a job. I said, I know, but I can't tell you faith works if I'm afraid to try. I did my 2 weeks, left unemployed. Had no idea what I was going to do. But because God moved from that bathroom prayer, I had assurance that he was going to do something. My first day of unemployment, by the end of that day, I got a call from Babyface and Tracy Edmonds offering me the same level of position that I was supposed to get at Will's company. They offered that to me. And I went and took that job, and I've never looked back.
Yeah.
And that for me was a very pivotal moment, because when you look at Naomi in that film and she's like, I'm done with you. She may say that, but God's saying, I'm not done with you. And over time, you're going to see, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but you see in the movie that it all works out the way it needs to.
Did you felt free when you quit?
I actually did. Because you know why? Because what I realized was that, I always do a cost benefit analysis.
Okay.
So if you're at a job and it's costing you more, if the benefit is more than the cost, meaning like you're learning, you're growing, you're advancing, then that means the benefit is greater than the cost. And I would encourage anyone to stay in that kind of job. But if it's costing you more than the benefit, you're not growing, you're not advancing, and now every day that you're there and you're not advancing, it's costing you time, it's costing you money, then that may be an opportunity to leave. So when I stepped out on faith, I had done the cost benefit analysis, and I'm like, hey, I've done all I can do here. I've 4 years as an intern, 2 years as an assistant. There's not much more I can do. So when I quit, I did feel free. That first day of unemployment, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I wasn't nervous about it. I was watching TV and watching soap operas and, just enjoying and saying, all right, well, I trust God. I trust that God's going to do something. And thankfully, he did. He did the great thing, which is to set me up for the career I currently have.
That's a great point, because in the film, Miss Naomi also said, I have it written down, but she said, freedom isn't free. It always comes with a cost.
Absolutely. Always. And sometimes when we're not willing to pay the cost, we aren't willing to pursue what real freedom is. And it always, there's never, in my experience, I've never seen a move in the direction of freedom that didn't require the person making that move to make a deep sacrifice in order to receive it.
Now, this question, when I was writing this question, this is both inspired by the young man in me.
Yeah, okay. I love that.
But you made me actually, because I wasn't familiar with the Ruth passage in the Bible, so you made me go and read that.
Okay,
and
yeah,
so
dope.
When I read the story, what I found out was, Ruth actually was the one who approached Boaz. And when I started to think about my generation and how in today's society, it's almost taboo for a woman to do that for a man that she likes. It's always, they want the man to approach. And so some women call it sassy for a man to say, I want a woman to approach me. To that you say?
I think let's go back to that, to the scripture. So Boaz had already taken notice of Ruth because he had already started providing for her even before they were in anything romantic. And so when Naomi tells her to, go to the threshing floor and let him know, I think that's a great bit of advice, right? Hey, let him know. And guess what? Then he'll know what to do. So the idea that she just makes it known that, hey, I'm interested, and then he takes it from there, he takes control, he takes initiative, he takes authority, and sets up the whole scenario for them to ultimately be together. I think that it actually lays a foundation for what can really work today. I don't think there's anything wrong. It's not that so much her making the first move. It's about just her being clear and being open. Hey, I'm interested. And then him being able to say, hey, okay, cool. And that goes vice versa too. As men, there's nothing wrong, to be like, hey, I'm interested, and make that move. And there's nothing wrong if you're a woman to just let a man know, hey, you know what? If I'm your cup of tea, just know I'm interested. I think that so often in dating, there's so much fear. What are we afraid of? The greatest fear in dating is rejection. And at the end of the day, if somebody rejects you, they're basically just saying that, for them, you aren't the right person. But that doesn't mean you aren't the right person. And I think for me, when you see this movie, I want people to have more faith in dating, more faith in love. Yeah, I might let some people know that I'm interested and they're not interested. That's not a reflection of me. It's okay. Cool. I'm going to stay faithful. I'm going to stay open to love. I'm going to stay who I want to be. And I know that it's going to ultimately work. But what I'm not going to do is be afraid. Why? Because if I'm afraid, let's say there's somebody, that you're interested in and you're too afraid to at least just let them know your interest, you might miss out on one of the best things that could happen for you. And it only will happen if you put that work behind that prayer and that faith. Yeah. So I'm hoping people watch this movie and they say, okay, I'm gonna let somebody know that I'm interested. Yeah. And then if that person picks it up, cool. And if they don't, hey, well, you know what? I tried. And then I can move on to the next situation. Because my thing is, I don't want anybody to get to the end of their life to then only realize they never lived.
Yeah.
To say, oh, I was too afraid to go on this date, or too afraid to. What does it matter? You tell somebody you're interested, they're not interested. Okay, and you go I guarantee you, in a week you ain't gonna even remember. But what will happen is you'll have a life that's rich with experience, and you will be able to look back and say, yeah, I tried that, I did that, I got that story, I've got that experience, and all of that is what life's about. But to live in fear, well, what if they don't like me, and what if they say no? Well, okay, I don't want to know, so I'm not gonna go no. For me, I just never want to live like that. And I just would encourage anybody, break out of your box, face your fears, go after what you feel is yours. Don't be afraid to let people know you're interested. And then what do we say? We stop and we see, right? We put that words behind that prayer and then we stop. We evaluate. Oh, okay, that worked out. Man, if I hadn't gone up to her and said this, then we would never be here. If I hadn't gone up to him and said that, we would never be there. When we operate in faith, the possibilities are limitless. So what you see in the scripture is Ruth doing that. And what happens? She gets set up in a way that she never would have if she didn't have the faith to at least let him know of her interest.
Yeah. Man, it's a great movie. I 100% recommend people go see it. I got two more questions, and then we get you out of here. But I want to ask a question. Something that stood out to me during the film is about Boaz owning the winery, and that being passed down to him from his father. To me that spoke, or I guess I saw that as legacy. And I wonder if that's what y'all were intentionally trying to highlight.
Absolutely. What I love is you see Boaz as a young black entrepreneur, landowner, business owner, and it runs in the family. And that lineage and legacy of entrepreneurship, there are strong entrepreneurs, in the black community, and there are businesses and legacy and wealth that does get passed down generationally, and we don't really talk about that much. And so it was just a great way in this movie to be able to highlight that there is wealth in the black community, and there are families that have through blood, sweat, and tears sacrificed to create incredible businesses that then they are able to pass on to their children. And so when you see Boaz, the thing that he wants the most outside of Ruth is to make his father proud and to do right by his father's legacy. That is a really, truly honorable man.
Yeah. And my last question is inspired by your Hollywood Commandments, the book you wrote. In that you wrote about, men being disciplined in their sexual life.
Sure.
This year, last year, the year prior, we've seen a lot of men lack that publicly. And so I wanted to ask you, why do you think sexual discipline is such a crucial test of character, for men in positions of power?
Well, I say that it's not regulated to just men in positions of power. It's all men.
Okay.
All men. And why is it important? Because every man struggles between two things, love and lust. And at the end of the day, if we allow lust to run us, it will ruin us. Because that feeding of that lust and the turning over control of our life to that lust, that lust has an insatiable appetite that can never be satisfied. So for men, for us to be the men that we were created to be, we have to do the hardest thing, which is to employ discipline, to put that love in us, the love of ourselves, the love of God, the love of the women in our life, the love of our family. We have to say that love has to be in control of that lust. And when we allow love to lead us, it will prevent the damage that lust wants to do. Lust wants what it wants, when it wants it, however it wants it. But love thinks of more than just itself. It thinks of the other person. It thinks of the greater good. And when we as men lead with that and we put that love in control of lust, then there's nothing we can't do. Because that is the hardest thing for us as men to do, is to get that lust underneath the authority of that love. And when we endeavor to do it, then there's nothing. When we do that, everything else is a cakewalk, because that internal discipline, that internal, struggle, that is every man's greatest opportunity, and it's every man's greatest challenge. So I do believe that for us to be men of character and integrity, we have to, and this is my point of view, we have to put that love in control of that lust, to be the men that we were created to be.
Well said.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you for joining me today. Any last announcement you'd like to make? We know you're working on relationship goals.
Yes.
Which with Amazon.
Yes.
There's no date on when that's coming out.
No, it's coming. It's coming next year. We're going to be able to announce a date very soon. But it stars Kelly Rowland and Method Man. So excited about that film, But I'm excited to get people really, really teed up for Ruth and Boaz, so that when you see Ruth and Boaz, then it's like, all right, then you're ready for the next DeVon Franklin Entertainment production, and that'll be Relationship Goals. And then I'm starting prep on a film that'll be out for Christmas of next year. And, I'm really excited about that, and obviously excited for people to see Soul on Fire in theaters on October 10th.
Amazing. DeVon Franklin, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you for your time.
Appreciate you.
All right, everybody else, this is the New Era Show. It's Power 105.1, and we'll see y'all. All right, peace.